All right. Well, first and foremost, welcome to the 2020 Love Conference, right? Love is short for Live Openly, Value Everyone. And I think now more than ever, it's a topic we have to discuss. For those of you who I've never met before, my name is Tania Irwin. I get paid to be the director of the Office of Leadership Development here at Temple, but then also for the free and on the side, I am also your host for this evening session. Not only is it this evening session, but it's also our very first session in our keynote. Our speaker today, cool guy. I've gotten to meet him in different capacities, and you know what? I don't usually co-sign. I usually don't co-sign too early in the game, but this guy here, I'm going to have to co-sign for him because I think there was no better person than James Robilotta to really kind of kick us off this week in talking about what does it really mean to show love and to really kind of power through this time. I want to first and foremost thank our sponsors, Xfinity and Coke. Without you all, this could not be possible. But more importantly, to our amazing partners, the Career Center and the Wellness Resource Center. But I want to take us this moment to really shout out an amazing group of folks who will probably never shout themselves out, which I think is what makes them so amazing. We have this amazing group of students, and they're referred to as the LIT team, of course, because they're lit and they're popping, but also, which is short for Leaders in Training. And they're actually the individuals who are responsible for putting this entire thing together. I know every flyer says OLD and leadership development, but it really is these amazing group of folks who really kind of put their heart and their soul into planning this. And we were very intentional about really kind of giving students content that could be relevant to right now, right? Everyone's figuring out, okay, you know what? So much is happening to me right now. So much is happening around me. And how do I navigate this, right? And it's really all about the pivot. And so without further ado, and honestly, I couldn't, again, think of a better person to kick us off. He's going to make you laugh your ass off. But more importantly, he's going to come with this really raw, amazing energy. So please help me introduce and welcome our amazing friend, James Robilotta. Hey.
What's good? Got the cosign out here. Y'all
Okay.
done. This is me leaving. This is it. I'm out. I love to see it. My friend, so excited to be here. Can we talk about these frames, Tania, please? I'm here for it.
I saw yours and I had to run in my closet to match your fly. I don't know how we were going to do this today.
Level up. It's an honor to be here. Thank you so much for having me and let me be a part of this truly awesome event, the Love Conference. Y'all been busting it. Shout out again. I know you just did it, but shout out again to the team for sure that really worked to make this happen. And thank you. It's an honor to be a part of it. For sure.
Awesome. And so I know you're a very conversational person. And I kind of feel like we're sitting on the couch, two friends, and just chatting. And I think more than anything, I've been watching you. And for those folks who do not or are not connected with James on LinkedIn, please connect with him on LinkedIn, because literally some days you are what gets me through the day. Because you just drop gems all up and down my timeline, and I appreciate you for that. And I think our students definitely need it, right?
Much love. Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate it. I'm excited to be here. You want me to jump in?
Go for it. Take it away.
Let's
I hope y'all taking notes out there.
My friends, my name is James Robilotta. I'm super excited to be kicking it with you all today. Thank you for being here. Thank you for taking the time to work on yourself and your own leadership development and be a part of this amazing event. Let's start off this way, my friends. I feel like a natural place to get to know each other, because right now I'm just some random, extremely attractive man talking to you. Okay, what? Anyway, is to tell you how I eat pancakes. This makes sense, right? Great. Here's how I eat pancakes, friends. First off, you can get out of my face with a short stack of pancakes, all right? I know you can't really tell it's Zoom, right? Okay, but I'm a large man. I'm gonna need a full stack of pancakes. And when it comes to my pancakes, I'm an equal opportunist. Same amount of butter and syrup on each one, okay? I'm not like the Bisquick box. Y'all seen the Bisquick box before? It's got the big stack of pancakes on it, the little yellow pad of butter up top, and the syrup just delicately dripping down the sides. Say, yay! No, because if you eat your pancakes that way, you're cutting into a drier gradient of pancake, and that doesn't make any sense. My friends, if you like your pancakes soaked with butter and syrup like I do, let me know in the chat, my friends. Let me know right now. And so if you don't like your pancakes that way, maybe we got some drizzlers in the house. Maybe we got some dippers in the house. Maybe some dry pancake eaters. That's fine. Temple University is an inclusive environment. So is the Love Conference. Thank you so much for being here. But my friends, after I get my pancakes equally and adequately soaked with butter and syrup, what I do is I cut little triangles out all the way around so that I have a star. Then I cut the points off the star so I have another circle. And then I cut more triangles out. It's a very geometric eating experience. And I start that way because I need you all to know from the jump, I'm a little bit weird. I'm a little bit weird, but it's okay. I think we're all a little weird. I mean, sure, maybe we choose not to get up in front of a group of randos and share our weirds, but alas, we all got a little something, my friends. And I think it's fun when we start that way because right now I feel a little alone. I feel a little alone, but I'm wondering if any of you that are watching this right now also have a food quirk like I do. Do any of you eat anything in a unique way? For example, do any of you mash two random ingredients together that your friends often judge you for? I'm sure there's someone watching this that eats peanut butter and pickle sandwiches. Okay. I know you're out there. If you are, let me know in the chat, my friends. Let me know over here in the chat about what's going on and what two random ingredients you like mashing together. For example, I really love the taste of apple juice and pretzels. I don't know why. Every day after I would come home from school, I would get the apple juice out and the pretzels and I would dunk them and I would eat them. It's a weird thing, y'all, but we all got a little something. But I'm wondering what we got. Let's see. We got Sarah over here says her brother used to put applesauce on top of mashed potatoes. That just sounds like an interesting temperature dynamic. I don't know what I mean. I would try it, right? I mean, who would I be? But there you go. Thank you, Sarah. I love this. We got ramen with ketchup and hot sauce. What do I think about this right here? Ramen with ketchup. I mean, I support fusion, but this may be a little too far for me. I'm totally playing, friend. I'm glad you got something that you love. I'm glad that you got something you love. We all have something interesting that we do, and it's fun when we start that way. It's fun when we start that way because these are the little things that connect us. And leadership is human. But we forget oftentimes about the humanity of leadership in the midst of things like deadlines, obligations, things that are pushing and pulling on us, all of these different aspects that are happening around us, both at work, at school, at home, wherever it is. We got so much going on that sometimes by the time we end up in a meeting or in a group or something like that, we're like, yo, let's go. Let's go. I don't got time. I got no time for your excuses. I got no time for the fact that nothing's done. I got no time for, oh, yada, yada, whatever. We got to keep it pushing. And we forget about the humanity sometimes. And I think it hurts our teams because there's a lot of power in our stories, right? Our stories connect us. Think about it. Stories lead to connection. Connection leads to trust, and trust leads to loyalty, right? One more time. Story leads to connection. Connection leads to trust, and trust leads to loyalty. And so our stories are a pivotal point for us. And with that being said, I'll share a quick story with you. My GPA in undergrad was a 2.73. Where we at? Hey, where we? Yay! Okay. Yeah, no, we're not up here high-fiving mediocrity, my friends. This is not me bragging about my GPA to you, but the fact of the matter is my GPA was so low because I was an over-involved student leader. See, because when I went to school 12 hours away from home. I went to school 12 hours away from home at a state school in another state. I'm born and raised in Long Island, New York. New Yorkers, if you're here, let me know in the chat. And so I'm born and raised in Long Island, New York. Went to school 12 hours away from home at a state school in another state, which means everybody down there knew somebody from high school, and I was the only one that talked funny. I remember my very first, there you go, Kamani. I remember my very first memory of college. I was like, yo, I could go to the dining hall, but we all know what they serve, and I should do something different, right? I'm in a new part of the country. It's like, 1 or 2 days down here. Let me get into it. So I went to Wendy's because I respect culture. I went to Wendy's and I pulled up to the counter. I was like, yeah, how you doing? How you doing? Sure. Yeah, listen, let me get a number 2, no mustard, no onions. Give me a large fry, large sweet tea, whatever that is, and frosty. And the woman looked me back dead in the eyes and she said, oh, I'm very sorry, sir, but all I got was hello. I was like, oh, geez, here we go. Here we go. Y'all, the man that you see before you today, delightfully charismatic, okay, wonderfully extroverted, okay, what? Maybe a little obnoxious. Same man that you see before you today. I showed up at college and I was absolutely miserable because I told myself all these stories. Instead of putting myself out there, I told myself all these stories, right? I'd say some folks that I recognize from orientation, or I'd see some folks that I recognize from class or something like that. Maybe they'd be in the dining hall. Maybe they'd be in the coffee shop on campus. Maybe they'd be playing ball. I'd be like, oh, shoot, let me get next real quick. But right before I ever went and approached any of them, I would say, actually, James, why don't you just stay right where you are? Don't go talk to them, man. Because let's be honest. You're not cool enough. You're not funny enough. You're not smart enough. You're not hot enough. You're not rich enough. Why don't you just stay in your lane? And I told myself all of these stories that kept me from joy. And isn't it just like us as human beings to tell ourselves stories that keep us from joy? I did a whole bunch of that until I finally got involved. And getting involved changed the game for me. All of a sudden, I had a sense of purpose on that campus. I had a place to be on Monday nights where people knew my name. They wanted to hear my ideas. They were pumped that I was a part of the organization. And it was just awesome. I needed that, y'all, because I have a Bachelor of Science in marine biology. I don't know if you've noticed just yet, okay? But there's no fish around me over here. I currently use my degree to impress dates at aquariums. It worked once, so I put a ring on it. Hey, let's go, baby. Yeah. Actually, I asked her and she said yes, and that was very nice of her. Thank you. But still, marine biology wasn't enough for me to fall in love with my school. I needed to do something else, and getting involved changed the game. It took me from being a participant to being an owner in my college experience. It took me being from someone who pays tuition to someone who uses tuition. Getting involved is critical because when I started to get involved, that I developed these leadership skills. I started to develop this sense of purpose, this sense of community, and I needed all that, y'all, and I loved it. And I loved it. Becoming a leader is one of my favorite things that I did in college. I learned all of these skills. I became a better man. I became a better human because of it. But let me ask you this question. If I had somebody here standing next to me and I told you this person is a leader, do me a favor. Can you put in the chat, what are some of your favorite leadership characteristics that you see in other individuals? What are some favorite leadership characteristics that you see in others? Go ahead and put them in the chat. You know, things like honesty, integrity. What are things that you look for often in other leaders? Empathy, I love it. Self-confidence is great, for sure. Being personable, that's awesome as well. Yep. For sure. These are some great ones. Charismatic, and go on. That there's passion. Yes, of course. I love that. I love it. My friends, we can list these great qualities like honesty, right? Thank you. Accountability, right? Yes, thank you. We can list these qualities all day. We know the qualities that great leaders possess, but let me tell you about me, okay? I'm a disorganized procrastinator who's awkwardly friendly at parties and who's cocky around my fellow professionals. Y'all, I'm disorganized. There's a reason why the camera is facing this way and not that way. Because on the other side, it looks like I sat a toddler on top of a stack of papers and the kid just started going like this. Yay! Because that's my organizational style. Some of you, my type A friends out there, my list makers, my Microsoft Excel, Google Sheet users, project managers, software into all the organization, bullet journalers, highlight users. We got all the organized sock drawers. Y'all, that's amazing that you do what you do. And you're grateful right now that we're not together because I would 100% try to mess with your stuff. I'm a little disorganized. I'm also a procrastinator, but I think we should talk about that tomorrow. What do you think? Are you kidding me? Does this guy get any funnier? Oh my God, we've reached the peak. That was a terrible joke. That was terrible. Anyway, moving on. So I am a disorganized procrastinator. I'm also awkwardly friendly. Like I'm that guy at the end of the night at the party that's like posted up on the wall and everybody else is leaving. I'm over here like, hi. People throwing the party, be like, James, man, what are you still doing here? I'm like, I don't know. It's like finally quiet. Why don't we have a deep conversation? People throwing the party, like, nah, man, we're going to bed. I'm like, oh, okay, I guess I'll go. Right? I'm that guy who just lingers a little bit too long. I share a little bit too much about myself. You've noticed. You've noticed. I'm also cocky around my fellow professionals. I got my master's degree at Clemson University. Go Tigers. I went to Clemson University for my master's and I got my first professional job ever with benefits and the whole nine. Got my first professional job ever post-master's at a university working in residence life in New York City. And I walked in the first day of my first professional job ever like a damn boss, like it was an old Western saloon. I was like, boom. Right? I walked in, I was like, yeah, feel free to read the top of this piece of paper. It says master on it. Okay. What do you want me to do? Advise them, organize that, supervise them, run this, handle that, do this, set that up, run this over here, take them here, whatever. I can do it all. I'm a damn boss. Now, there's probably a really good chance that all that cockiness was just to cover up my intense insecurity because I was actually worried I wasn't going to be good at my job. But let's not worry about that, right? Oh, shit. But it's interesting when I have you think about qualities of leaders, right? Think, again, some of these great ones that you put over here on the side, compassion, charismatic, right? Some of these kind of things. You know, I also tell people about these other parts of me that aren't as sexy because I believe I owe it to the individuals that I lead to let them know where I am still a work in progress. I believe I owe it to those individuals to let them know, yo, here's some places where you can hold me accountable to being better. Because if I expect them to let me hold them accountable to being better, then who the hell am I not to expect that in return? That would be hypocritical. We all make each other better. No one has finished the race. We're all still learning and growing. My friends, as leaders, it's not only your job to impact others' lives, it's your job to let them impact yours. As leaders, it's not only your job to impact others' lives, it's your job to let them impact yours. But we can't get to impact if we don't first open ourselves up and allow it to happen. And that's what we're talking about today. Today, we're talking about something called authentic leadership. And authentic leadership is something I thought I came up with in a moment of glory. And then I did a really quick Google search. And turns out some guy wrote a book called Authentic Leadership. This guy, Bill George, wrote this book called Authentic Leadership. And I recommend it. If you like books, check it out. It's a good book for sure. But he simply describes it as a self-awareness approach to leadership. And I put this up here to let you know that there's going to be some moments where we're going to get a little bit deeper. And I hope you'll come with me in that moment. Let's jump in. As a professional speaker, I've been carefully taught that I need to teach you things through acronyms. So I'm going to teach you a word today. That word is PORM. Can you say it for me? PORM. I know it's weird. No one, your cat's looking at you at this point. It's awkward. Your dog's like, what are you saying? Doesn't matter. PORM. Authentic leaders are purposeful. They empower others. They own who they are. They're real and they follow their morals. Authentic leaders are purposeful. They empower others. They own who they are. They're real and they follow their morals. If we use authentic leadership and apply it to today's hot mess, the uncertainty, the ambiguity, the what the hell is happening in 2020, I believe we come out better. And so let's talk about where it fits in with all these different spots. Let's talk about being purposeful first. As a leader, your intent will influence your impact. Right? As a leader, your intent will influence your impact. Now, here's what we know about that. You've all worked alongside somebody in a role that's only there because it's going to look good on their resume. Right? You've worked at a job, you've worked in a group, you've worked in an organization with someone who's only there because it's going to look good on their resume. These people are frustrating to work with. Right? Because they're not raising the bar, they're barely smacking their head on it. These individuals aren't trying to do more than what's expected of them. As a matter of fact, they're barely meeting expectations. We know these folks because they show up at your service events and they come there to paint the wall at the elementary school. They hand you their phone, tell you to take a boomerang. Meanwhile, they're rocking your organization shirt. They get the really cool boomerang. Like, wow, did you get it? all right, cool. Listen, I got to go, but I love kids, right? Like it's not going to work. We know these individuals. They're the ones that sit in the back of your meetings and complain, yet they have never run for anything themselves. These folks are frustrating to be around. These folks are frustrating. It's also even more frustrating because frequently they are our friends. And it's weird to hold your friends accountable. But what we know about leadership is that there's a whole bunch of really cool things about leadership, but there are also some really frustrating aspects of it. And so whatever role you put yourself in, whatever job you take, position you have, title you gain, whatever it is, there's going to be some frustrating aspects to it. And that's where your purpose comes in. Because your purpose allows you to zoom out and see the bigger picture of why this matters. Yeah, this tiny, annoying, frustrating thing is super stupid. It's tedious. It's dumb. But in order to make the bigger picture happen, we got to get it done. Right? It's just like if you were looking at a big engine, like a car with a really big, sexy engine. No one opens up the hood and is like, oh my gosh, look at this grease. What kind of oil do you use? Oh, wow, there's probably gasoline in this thing. No, we don't care about that stuff. We care about the horsepower. We care about the torque. We care about 0 to 60 times, right? But the grease, the oil are the things that keep the engine moving. And so we can't just ignore that. We can't just celebrate the parts of leadership that we love and ignore the stuff we don't. We have to figure it out. If we have a good purpose, if we're aligned in our purpose, then we allow it to serve as a bulldozer that pushes us through some of those frustrating aspects of leadership. And that's critical, especially right now. Especially right now in 2020, where everything's a little murky, it's a little ambiguous. We don't really know what's going on anymore. We can't have our organizations the way that we used to. We can't lead the way that we like to because we can't even spend time in meetings at face-to-face and stuff like that. So this is the moment where it would be easy for us to be like, well, you know what? Let's just scrap it. I'm gonna catch y'all in how about 2022? Let's assume 21's out too. I'm gonna catch y'all in 2022. Sounds good, right? I'm gonna take a nap, right? We can't be a bear and hibernate for the winter until COVID's gone. Which is why we need to revisit the purpose of our organizations and figure out what are creative ways that we can bring them to life right now. So it's not only your purpose in your organization, it is your organization's purpose that we have to revisit and figure out what can we do right now to bring this purpose to life. So many of our organizations provide things like professional development and personal development. You can do that stuff from afar. You can do that stuff over Zoom through different learning things, through phone calls, through socially distanced meetups and things like that. There are ways to do it. Yes, it looks different. Yes, it's not quite as cool. Yes, it has changed, but that doesn't mean we still can't check the box. It doesn't mean that our overall mission, just because we can't do it the exact way we used to, is not still important. And that's why, my friends, we then jump into the E. Authentic leaders are purposeful. They empower others. But empowerment's one of those words that we love in leadership, right? We throw it around willy-nilly. I was once driving down the New Jersey Turnpike, which in itself is a very sad sentence. Shout out to you, Jersey. But I was driving down the Jersey Turnpike and I saw the most cliche billboard ever. It had this kid with the glasses down the bridge of their nose over some preposterously huge book. And then above here, it had the school's crest. And then right below it, it said the word empower, period. Like some New Jersey mother's going to be rolling down the street with their son, be like, oh my God, Michael, wake up. No, Michael, wake up and look at the damn sign. No, that's the way you need to go to college. Okay, trust me, you need to be empowered. Look at you, you're a lump. All right. Your father wasn't empowered either, let me tell you. All right. But it's not the way the word works. It's not the way the word works. Leadership is more action, less title. And empowerment is one of those actions that we're talking about. And so when we think about this world that we're in right now, it's easy to look at it as a glass half empty or a glass half full or something like that, right? But my buddy Justin Jones Fosu put it best where he said, James, it's not about if the glass is half empty or the glass is half full. It's how do you fill the damn glass? Well, my friends, that's hard because there's a lot of parts to this year that suck. There's a lot of parts that are frustrating. It's tough that we can't see people the way we want to see people. It's tough that we can't get together, go out to eat. It's tough that we got to think about everything. We're wearing these masks. We got so much stuff going on, and it's annoying. And it's hard, right? I mean, I'm a giant hugger. If we were in person right now, I'll be hugging all y'all with permission, right? But I'm just saying, like, that's a part of me that I really love. And so I'm trying to find ways to make this a little bit better. And it's hard some days. But my friends, we got to fill the glass. I'm not interested in just sitting around being like, well, I guess this sucks. Well, I guess this is whatever, right? The answer to nothing is, well, let me just sit around and wait for it to change. That is never the answer. You are either an active participant of change or you are someone who is the recipient of change, as in other people made shit happen and you just sat there, right? So the thing is, my friends, is that right now we have to figure out ways to empower individuals to see that they can bring something to the table to help our organizations, to help our communities, to help our country. Where are the places where we can have individuals step up and do that right now and recognize that, like, you know what, this is frustrating. This does suck. I do miss a lot of things, but I got to do something. That is critical right now. Empowering individuals to find their strengths, revisit their purpose, and let it serve as a bulldozer that pushes them through the frustrating aspects of leadership, the hard parts of change, is critical. Because here's the thing, we know that the phrase that kills pretty much all businesses is the phrase, well, that's the way we've always done it, right? Well, that's the way we've always done it. 2020 came through and said, oh, that's the way you've always done it? Well, here, hold my beer, right? So right now, my friends, is the moment. It is the moment where organizations, where companies, where groups, where communities will be made or broken based on their willingness to adapt, move, and succeed. That's why we need to empower individuals to think a little differently right now. Authentic leaders are purposeful. They empower others. The O stood for own. Owning who you are is one of the hardest things that we're going to talk about today, because owning who you are involves putting every single facet of your life in front of a mirror. And I don't know about you all, but I personally find mirrors to be pretty horrific places. And I'm not just talking about putting your physical appearance in front of a mirror. I'm also talking about putting your choices in front of a mirror, putting your ego in front of a mirror, putting your reputation, your relationships, your friendships, your faith, all of these things in front of a mirror and truly seeing it. But that's hard because mirrors don't lie. Now, when I think about owning who we are, I often think about some of the best conversations that we have in our lives. I think the best conversations that we have in our lives all occur after the hour of 11 o'clock over milkshakes. Okay, I don't know what your favorite late night move is over there. Okay, I know y'all in Wawa country right now, at least the Temple. I'm not sure if you got some diners out there. You got plenty of local joints as well. Maybe just making a late night guilty Taco Bell run. No shame in here, my friends. But the thing is that wherever you roll out to, this is the spot where you roll out to with your friends and you all look like a hot mess. Your makeup gave up hours ago. Whatever product you put in your hair is like, I'm done for the day. You're rolling out, your hat's askew, your socks don't match. It doesn't matter because you're just with people that you love. And they don't care about the way you look. They're just excited to be with you. I love these conversations. Now, I know for me and my friends, we go to Applebee's for half price appetizers because we got it like that, y'all. Okay? So we go to Applebee's for half price appetizers. And one of my friends always kicks off the conversation pretty much the same way each time. It sounds like this: bro, you'll never believe what happened to me last week. And he starts to share an embarrassing story about himself. Here's the funny thing about embarrassing stories is that embarrassing stories help us own who we are. So here's what I want to try, my friends. Let's see if we can do this. In the chat, what I'm hoping you can do is I want you, in 5 words or less, to tell me an embarrassing story about yourself. For example, fell down going upstairs, right? Sent pic to wrong person, accidentally screenshotted, right? Things like that. Tell me something in the chat, right? What happened to you? Rescued by lifeguard kiddie pool. What happened to you? Let's see what we can get in the chat. Let's see if some pop up over here. So I will also share an embarrassing story about myself. Scuffle on national television. Incredible. I need to learn more about that. Jumped, jumped on wrong grocery cart. Sarah? Question mark? Was running home and slipped on ice. Oh no, friend. Oh no. That's terrible. Absolutely terrible. Friends, we all have these embarrassing stories. I'll share one with you. At my senior prom, I dislocated my right knee dancing to Shania Twain's Man, I Feel Like a Woman. Yeah, that's right. My senior prom dislocated my right knee dancing to Shania Twain's Man, I Feel Like a Woman. That's it, friends. What else we got over here? We got some other ones. Saw roach, scream, ran, slip, and fell. Oh, no. Skiing and fell over like 10,000 times. Oh, no. You got to ski with one of those plastic bubbles on. Putting groceries in the wrong cart. Yep, I've done that before, Haley. Yep, tripped walking up home stairs, right? I'm here every day. How did I not know how to navigate these? Tried to open stranger's car door. Yes, I have the same color car as you. That's happened to me. That's always awkward, especially if they're in the car. None of that happened to me. No, never. Friends, it's fun when we share these embarrassing stories because when we share them, we are reminded, even if it's subconsciously, we are reminded that we are resilient. And you have to remember that you're resilient. Because if you don't believe you're resilient, then the next time you're faced with something hard, something uncomfortable, something you are unsure about, you'll be less likely to try. You'll be less likely to start. You'll be less likely to love. So we have to remember that we are resilient. Whatever you have been through in your life, in this moment, you get to recognize that you're fine. Whatever you are going through, if you're currently going through something in life, you have landed on your feet before, my friends, and you will land on your feet again. Even though right now it may not feel like it, it's going to happen. We must trust that we are resilient, that we have the capacity to bounce back, right? We've got to do this. Excuse me. And when we share these stories about ourselves, not only do they remind us that we are resilient, they also help us own who we are. They help us own who we are. Now, I'm that friend during these late night conversations. I'm that friend in these late night conversations that's always like, oh my gosh, we're having so much fun. This is so great. Now let's have a deep conversation. I don't know how many of y'all out there are the deep conversation switchers, okay? Everybody's laughing, having a good time, and you sound like this. How do you define happiness? Anyway, that's me. So there's a question that I ask my friends that I'll ask you right now that goes a little bit deeper into the idea of owning who you are. It's a very simple question. What's one lie that you tell yourself every single day? What's one lie that you tell yourself every single day? No, I'm not talking about, oh, I'm going to go work out. I'm not talking about, I'm not going to text her. I'm not going to text him. I'm not going to text them. I got some of y'all with that. I'm not about to smack the snooze alarm 3 or 4 more times. I'm not about to finish this whole sleeve of cookies. My friends, finish the cookies. Tomorrow is a new day. No, I'm talking about the deeper lies. The deeper lies that we all tell ourselves. For example, a lie that I'm telling you right now, I knew this was a casual affair, right? People out here, it's a casual joke, not a big deal. And so I was still like, you know what though? I still need to come looking cute, right? I still got to come looking cute. Let me get the trendy buffalo plaid on here, get my lumberjack sexy beard going, make sure the hair's got a little zhuzh in it. You know what I'm saying? Let's go out here. Because I needed to put a shell on. Because in my twisted brain, if I didn't look cute, I think you'd be more focused on how unattractive I am than on my message. Because I have a low self-esteem about my physical appearance. So I needed to put this shell on today, my friends, because I needed to win. Because every single day when we wake up, we need to win. And if we need to lie to ourselves a little bit that day, a little bit that day to win, my friends, I think that's okay. I think that's called being a human being. And we're allowed to be one of those. We're allowed to be one of those. But the thing is that we all know the phrase, fake it till you make it. But if all you ever do is fake it, you never really make it. And so we've got to start owning some of these lies. We've got to start working on them. Maybe lie is too strong of the word. Maybe we call them stories, right? Maybe you tell yourself stories like I told myself earlier, like I was telling you about, right? My first year of college. Do you tell yourself stories where it's like, oh, I'm not good enough. I'm not hot enough. I'm not rich enough. I'm not successful enough. I'm not trendy enough. I'm not blank enough. I don't have enough followers. I don't have enough this. I don't have enough that. And we tell ourselves these stories over and over and over again. And these stories keep us from joy. But the interesting thing, friend, is that no one else knows your stories. No one else knows what's going on with your physical health and your mental health. No one knows what it's like to be you and exist in your body and your skin. No one knows what it's like to deal with your financial situation, your academic situation, your family situation. So each one of these stories, each one of these lies is a different brick that you carry. And we owe it to ourselves to live a lighter life. So I don't know what owning your lies looks like. Sometimes for me, it looks like me driving inappropriate speeds down the highway, blasting music, typically Panic at the Disco, and I'm openly weeping. Okay, you judge me if you need to, my friends. Don't act like you don't got some crying music, okay? Also, sometimes it looks like me sitting in a small room across from a woman in a chair named Sarah who looks like a counselor. Because it's me sitting across the room from my counselor named Sarah. Okay, great. So the thing is, friends, that sometimes I got to talk to somebody about what I'm going through, because I'm not good at talking about it with other individuals. And I'm still in the same rut, so I'm clearly not good at talking about it with myself either. And so sometimes I need to talk to somebody who doesn't know me, someone who can help me recognize patterns that I'm too deep into to see. I need individuals to help correct some of these speech patterns, the way I talk about myself, the way I believe in myself. And so I need to talk to some folks sometimes. And there ain't no shame in counseling. A lot of times in our country, there's a big stigma around counseling. I think we should stigmatize people who do not go to counseling. There's nothing wrong with bettering yourself. So, all of these things, right? It helps us own these lies so we can work on them. Because you have to own your lies so you can be real to other individuals. Again, authentic leaders are purposeful. They empower others. They own who they are. They're real and they follow their morals. But being real, being real is hard. Being real is hard, especially pretty much since the dawn of social media, right? I know I have some friends of mine that love to post pictures of themselves standing next to cars that aren't theirs. Maybe you're like me. Right? Maybe you got some friends like me. And I tell my friends, I'm like, yo, bro, nice Bentley. Last time I checked, you drove a Toyota Corolla and not a new one. Okay, yeah. Right? You can be whoever you want on the internet. But you can also be whoever you want. You can also be whoever you want when you step in front of that organization. When you apply for that job, apply for that raise, when you step up and put yourself out there, you could be whoever you want when you walk onto that campus, into that meeting, into that community, whatever. And so my next question to you, after what's one lie that you tell yourself every single day, is what version of yourself do you allow others to see? What version of yourself do you allow others to see? I'll tell you a quick story. As I mentioned before, I worked in residence life right out of grad school. Excuse me. Right out of grad school, I worked in residence life, and there was one year I oversaw a first-year building on this campus, and there was one year that one of the students just kept doing a bunch of dumb things around the campus, around the halls. He would like rip down RA's bulletin boards. He'd mess with people's whiteboards. He'd rip down all these things that we'd put up. He'd take markers and draw on the walls and things like that. It was really frustrating, but we didn't have cameras, so there was nothing to do. We couldn't catch him in the act. But then one day he did something a little bit bigger, and he stole from the bookstore. He stole a whole bunch of stuff, and he got caught. That sucks. So, so my supervisor caught wind of this gentleman. She said, hey, I want to sit in on the judicial hearing. Cool, sounds good. She sits in on the hearing. So he comes in. The first question we ask the dude is simply, so why'd you do it, right? So why'd you do it? Because, you could be, I mean, who knows what's going on? Who knows what the story could be, right? Like maybe there's some financial stuff going on. Maybe there's something's happening at home. I have no idea, but let's give him the benefit of the doubt and let's ask the question. So why'd you do it? He looks us back dead in the eyes. He's like you've never done anything wrong. I was over there like, excuse me? I was like, bro, you're never going to be a lawyer, right? Your Honor, like you've never done anything wrong. Okay, I rest my case. Not going to work for you. Well, my supervisor decided to one up him because she looked him back dead in the eyes and she's like, actually, I haven't. And now, y'all, I wanted my job. So I sat right next to her and I was like, it's very true. I can see your halo, right? But he obviously knew that she was lying. So he calls her out. He's like, okay, sure, lady. So you've never done 38 into 35. You never sent a text while driving. You never jaywalked. You never rolled the stop sign. You never refilled your drink too many times when you weren't supposed to, right? Like all these things that most of us have done probably in the last week. I know I have. And so he rattled off this whole list and she looked him back then in the eyes. And she said, no, I've never done any of those things. And I'm sitting next to her like, who the hell is this? I'm over here like, who are you trying to be right now? I was thinking to myself, I was like, oh, pretty sure just yesterday, you and I were doing 75 and a 55, bumping up the west side of Manhattan, listening to DMX and taking selfies. And y'all, this is not me complaining about that moment. I was having a great time. And so I'm sitting here though, like, who are you trying to be? He also knew that she was lying because I watched this man shut off. And the reason why he shut off, friends, is because we as human beings can't learn things from people who are perfect. We can only learn things from people who are imperfect. We as human beings can't learn things from people who are perfect. We can only learn things from people who are imperfect. And in that moment, she tried to teach him through perfection, but perfection's not how we learn. Because if you try to teach someone through perfection, it doesn't lead to learning. It doesn't lead to growth. It just leads to shame. And shame's not an effective teaching tool. Right? Think about it. When you were younger, did you ever have a parent, a guardian, a caretaker say something to you like, you know what? I'm not mad at you. I'm just disappointed. Yeah, you know it, right? For sure. Every time my mom used to say that, I'd be like, oh, God, oh, jeez. I would point to the family tree and be like, look, I'm the broken limb, right? Like, just wasn't effective. And so shame's not an effective teaching tool. When we try to teach someone through shame, it doesn't affect change. It only creates more shame. So right now, in such a weird year that is 2020, there is no perfectionism. There is no blueprint. There is no standard. We are all walking across a giant frozen lake. And we all thought the lake was going to be a lot smaller than this. But now we're not actually sure how big it is, right? So we got three options as we stand out here in the middle of the lake. If we want, we can go back. But we can't really go back because I don't even know what back there looks like anymore. I don't even know if it exists, right? So the other option is we can stay here and just be like, you know what, screw it. I'm done. I'm over it. That's it. I'm just going to stay here. But it turns out ice melts. So that's probably not a good long-term plan. So that means really our only option is to keep moving, to keep walking into the mist, into the fog, into the ambiguity. And we must make that choice. And the way that we must make the choice is with authenticity. Because right now, a lot of us are putting a lot of pressure on ourselves to have it all together, to have all this shit figured out. And that's an unrealistic goal. And we shouldn't set unrealistic goals because then that just builds our shame buckets, right? That's not necessary. Instead, we have to recognize that right now, what the time needs is authenticity. Right now, what the time needs is sometimes for somebody else to be like, just to acknowledge, yo, this does suck. Yeah, I miss a lot of stuff too. Yeah, it's really frustrating. Sometimes it also calls for someone to be like, you know what? I don't have all the answers. I don't know exactly what we're going to do, but I know that I'm trying to learn more and I'm trying to keep it moving. My friends, it is not your job as a leader to throw everyone on your back and carry them to the promised land. No, my friends, that's not leadership. That's saviorism, okay? And it's not going to work. All right. Individuals that try to save everybody, that handle everything. Let me just do it all. Those aren't leaders. Those are people with control issues. And there's a big difference. So right now, it's totally fine if you don't know the answers. I just need you to tell people, I don't know the answer to that. But I'm going to find out because I think it matters. Can you give me 24, 48, 72 hours? Whatever's realistic. Can I get back to you next meeting? It is okay to not know in the middle of something that no one knows. Take your perfectionist hat on and recognize that you, right now, exactly as you are good enough. How would you lead if you knew you were enough? How would you speak? How would you dream? How would you push yourself if you knew that you were enough? Because my friends, you weren't hired because you were the most perfect. You weren't elected because you were the most perfect. You weren't selected because you were the most perfect. No, my friends, you were hired, selected, and elected because you were the most trusted. And there's a big difference. So we have to stop carrying around this burden of trying to be everything for everyone in the middle of a thing that no one knows anything. Trust and believe that you are the right person right now for the job, even if it's not exactly what you signed up for. Most of y'all weren't like, I'm gonna take the pandemic year, actually. Thanks, that sounds fun. Yeah, no, give me the pandemic year. Yeah, I'll take that. Right? So right now we have to recognize that being real to each other is critical, especially as so many of us are having such wildly different experiences. Who knows what's going on with our families, our finances, our mental health, all of these kinds of things. Let's be real with each other and create avenues for connection. That's what's going to get through. That's what's going to get us through. And on top of all that, we need to make sure that we are doing that through our morals. Authentic leaders are purposeful. They empower others. They own who they are. They're real, and they follow their morals. When I'm talking about morals, my friends, here's what I'm talking about. I need you to be more interested in what is right than being right. That's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about morals. I'm talking about being more invested in what is right as opposed to being right. Think about it right now, right? There's a lot of people around you that are out here saying, oh, Black Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter. A lot of people saying all lives matter, all lives matter. And my friends, guess what? They're both right. They are. They're both right. But if I were to walk up to a row of houses and one of those houses was on fire and none of the other ones were, I wouldn't send a fire truck to every single house on the block. I would send it to the house that was on fire. Because there's populations in this country that have not been listened to, heard, thought of. As a matter of fact, had regulations passed against them to control and subdue all of those things for centuries, my friends. And so that is why right now it's okay if we send the fire truck to one house. Turns out I can care about them while I still love everyone else too. I'm a pretty complex human being like that, I guess. And the thing is, my friends, is that so often we think about the world through our own lens. And I get it. I do that shit all the time because it's the easiest it's the easiest lens to look at the world. It's the one I know the most. But then I hear about these other experiences that people that look differently, they think differently, they believe differently, they love differently than me. They come from a slightly different place than I do. They have different abilities than I do. And I think about it and I hear about their world. And if I wanted to, I could be like, well, that's not my experience. So there's no way that's your experience. That is me. If I did that, that would be me more interested in being right than what is right. I need you to think about the conversations that you have. I need you to think about the way that you are developing your morals. What stories are you hearing? Are you hearing the same stories on repeat? Are they digging you deeper into the hole of like, well, this must be the way it is? Or are you listening to dynamic stories from a bunch of different angles for you to then be like, okay, let me take some of this, some of this, some of this, some of this. You know what? Here's right now what I believe to be right. Authentic leaders are purposeful. They empower others. They own who they are. They're real and they follow their morals. Authentic leadership is hard because authentic leadership requires vulnerability. Both vulnerability of yourself, that inward vulnerability, that owning who you are, and that outward vulnerability, that being real to other individuals, that some of those morals as we're learning and growing and need to be taught new things, right? Some of those things. Vulnerability is fascinating though, because a lot of people think vulnerability is a weakness. But if vulnerability is such a weakness, then why is it so damn hard? Let's be honest real quick, my friends. It is easier to not ask for help than it is to ask for help. It is easier to avoid and compartmentalize than it is to own and confront. Vulnerability takes courage, and leaders are courageous. You are courageous. Right now, in the middle of the uncertainty, as we try to lead through this uncertainty, I need you to put yourself out there a little bit, because there's a whole bunch of people that don't think they're doing this right. They think they're messing it up. They think they're going to fall way behind. They think everything's terrible. They have no idea what to do. They have no idea what's happening. Sometimes if you just hit them with a little bit of vulnerability, some of that little bit, especially as a leader, somebody will be like, yo, I'm also feeling a little lost. You know, I also am a little worried about how this is going to affect, you know, my job search or the semester or whatever. Those moments are critical, because when we see ourselves in somebody else, we believe that we can. So, right now, my friends, right now we need to recognize that we need to lead imperfectly through uncertainty. And you're the right person for the job. You just need to believe it. You're the right person to learn, to grow, to fail, to win. Doesn't matter what order, as long as you keep moving. So, my friends, I can't thank you enough for letting me be a part of this. I really appreciate y'all. Thank you so much for letting me be here. We're going to do a Q&A, I believe. I think Kamani talked about it over here. We're going to do a Q&A. So feel free to either put them in, put them in the chat box, and we can do that. While we're waiting for some of those to come through, if you are interested in staying in touch with me, I'll put just a few things here in the chat. If you're interested in staying in touch with me, here are some ways. You pick which one's your favorite. But I'm on Instagram. I've been posting a lot of meaningful content on Instagram lately. I also came out with a new podcast. It dropped last week. It's called Diner Talks with James. It's about those late night dope conversations that we have, and I'm trying to recreate them in podcast form. It's been really fun. I hope you'll check it out. Again, it's called Diner Talks with James, available wherever you listen to podcasts. So check that out. So special. Tania, how you feeling?
You know, we're hanging in there. You shared some really great gems. I hope they're taking notes and they're writing some things down. And so I want to make sure, and I want to, you hit on something that was so important. And I kind of want to, if you don't mind, if I kick off your Q&A, because I find this is a question that a lot of students tend to ask, but you spoke a lot about vulnerability. Mm-hmm. And so for those who, I think sometimes people tend to not be as vulnerable out of fear of seeming weak, right? Or losing credibility, or their followers or their peers losing respect for them. Is there a line with how vulnerable you should be, or how do you go about navigating vulnerability amongst your peers during this time when you want them to be confident in your leadership?
Yeah, tough balance for sure. Tough balance for sure. I think I've always thought that it's best to name it, right? Let's name where we are. And let's get it, like, let's throw ourselves a pity party for a second, right? Like we're complex human beings. We can feel stuck. We can feel sad. We can feel all those things. And then we can turn it around. But it's a little bit, I mean, a lot of what we're experiencing right now is loss, right? It's a weird way to put it, but we're grieving, right? And there's stages of loss. There's denial. There's anger. There's getting over it. There's, you know, there's wanting to have all the explanations, like give me all the detail, right? Like all these things. And a lot of us are right there in what we're feeling. And so I think that's one of the first things that we need to do is let's name it. Let's name what we're going through. And then also, like, even just for the leaders, Because I mean, it's tough being around people who are just like crazy optimists, right? But it's also tough being around people who are crazy pessimists. And so we've got to recognize that there's a balance, and you have to meet your people where they're at and then bring them. Because otherwise you're doing a lot of fishing. And you're like trying to throw stuff over to them. You're like, come on over here. No, come here. Did you like that? You didn't like that. Okay, let me try something else. A different piece of bait. Okay, let me try something else. Instead, you got to get in the water. You got to get dirty and get over to them and be like, how we doing? And we also need to recognize, I think along the same line, is that not everybody's ready to change. Not everybody is ready to move. And that does not imply failed leadership. People's inability to adapt to change has nothing to do with you and everything to do with themselves. Because change is a lot for different people based on what they've gone through in their lives. And so I think that's a big thing, is that a lot of leaders, what I'm seeing right now is they're setting unrealistic goals of themselves of like, I'm going to be able to get my whole organization back together. We're going to be doing all these cool things. And that's just not realistic. Instead, you got to make sure you got your tight core. And if some other people then want to drag along and come along, that's fine. But you got to make sure that you have a tight core that's keeping it moving, because your organization needs to weather the storm.
Absolutely. Awesome. Thank you for that. So we have a question from another person, and they're talking more so about the authenticity and authentic leadership. And they want to know how and why did you become so interested in this topic and just this idea of being true to yourself?
Yeah, for sure. So I think it's funny. There's something in life called reverse role models. We know what role models are, but reverse role models are often the individuals that are teaching us a lot, but in the wrong direction. And that's what I felt about a supervisor that I had. I had a supervisor that, whenever I would ask for feedback, she'd always be like, why do you always want feedback? She's like, I'll tell you if you're doing something wrong. Right. And it was frustrating to work with her. And then also, you could also see the way it played out in the dynamics of the way students talked to her as well, because a lot of people would come up to me and share me some deep, intimate thoughts, and come to me when they're really struggling with a whole bunch of stuff. And some other peers of mine as well. You could see that they were the ones that people were consistently going to when they were struggling with something, and no one ever went to her. And there's a reason for that, right? And what I wanted to think, and what I thought about, I guess, while I was there, is what is that reason? And for me, I kind of boiled it down to authenticity, right? That people could relate to me, that I was meeting people where they were. And instead of talking down to folks and trying to lead them through perfection, or, there's also a lot of leaders that love to lead through hindsight, and that's not effective. Right. I've had some supervisors that if the Air Force cared about hindsight, they'd be in the Air Force. But yeah, so I think that's where my passion developed from it. And then I would say from a personal side, I think we all teach things that we need to know, or that we need to remind ourselves. And so, for example, I went through a relationship that ended, and I wrote a book on authenticity and vulnerability in the middle of that relationship while I wasn't being that with her. And so I also teach what I need to learn. So I think there's some of that as well. Great question. Thank you, Sarah.
Awesome. Actually, I think too, to follow up, because we talk about authenticity a lot at Temple in our office, and sometimes it's just because you're exhausted. You're gonna think like sometimes playing a character, it takes so much out of you. You don't even realize it. Eventually you're like, damn, it's been a while since I really saw my face. Right. And I'm pretty sure you've had those moments in your life too. But you also brought up a great point about even learned leadership, about how even when you don't see things modeled the right way, there's still a way to learn through mistakes. Can you I know you mentioned it a little bit earlier, but can you walk with folks and talk with them about how do you really make the most of opportunities, even the ones that you miss the mark, or things, or times when you've made a mistake?
Yeah. I think it's interesting. I mean, just to go back to something you also just said, Tania, where, what the hell did you just say again?
Right. It was loaded. Just, I think in one piece talking about authenticity being exhausting, and then also about how.
That was it. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So I was like, sorry, my ADHD is fun at times. So I go here. It's also interesting because yes, there have been times where I'm exhausted, and I'm a straight white male who came from more than enough, right? Like I'm society's baseline essentially, right? Like I don't have to pass to go anywhere. I don't have to take on a new persona, a new whatever, right? Like that's privilege, is that I just get to show up and don't think about how I have to show up. And the fact that I'm tired speaks so much more for individuals that do have to do those things. Or how am I talking? How would I talk around my peers versus now? And what's going on with all those kind of things. It's just even more exhausting to be an individual who is from a disenfranchised part of the population that is just not that is not told that they can show up exactly how they are wherever they are, and that is disappointing to say the least. But yeah, I mean, I think as far as your actual question goes, there's a number of times where you have these learning moments of times where you've slipped and struggled and fell, and picked yourself back up. I mean, I think that as a student leader, especially when I think back to being an RA, I was an RA for a number of years and loved that experience. But like, I often wanted to be the cool RA, right? I wanted to be the awesome RA, the funny guy. I want to be the guy everybody hangs out with. We always had such a cool community on the floor. And in doing so, I didn't write as many people up. And so therefore, now all of a sudden you have all these other student leaders, my peers, that had to look like jerks because I wouldn't do it, right? And that shifted our team dynamics, and it didn't help us. And so, there's not always like the cool dad and the strict parent and the cool parent. Like that dynamic doesn't always work. You've got to have each other's backs in some places. Obviously, you're never going to be 50-50, but you got to try to get closer and stand up for each other. And I didn't do that because I was more interested in being seen as cool than being great, right? I think there's a number of those moments where I've also, I've done that, where I've put my foot in my mouth, and I've said things about women that I shouldn't have said. I've said things about elderly that I shouldn't have said, or just like, it's all a part of this fact that I'm a work in progress. And I'm trying to be a better man, trying to be a better white person, trying to be a better human. And to a certain extent, it's about being able to take the criticism. That's something that's really hard for us to do because no one likes being called out. That shit sucks. And so it's really hard for us to get called out, but it's really important if we do take the feedback, even if it isn't right then, if we allow the seed to plant, it'll eventually grow. Right? Think about the things that your parents or teachers or whoever brought you up taught you back in the day, right? Like they planted all sorts of seeds. I'm pretty sure one of them just sprouted like last year for me. It was like, oh shoot, my dad said that one time, right? And so, but it's being willing to hear it and recognize that maybe I don't have it all together, and maybe that's okay.
But like you said, it's almost leadership is like parenting. It's like it's an exchange of like, okay, I'm coming to the table and I'm bringing. There's some good things about me and some bad things, and we work through them, right? I learn from you, you learn from me, and just like with parents, you have something that you go to your mom for, and something that you go to your dad for, because whatever skills they're bringing to the table, they're able to do that. And so I think even in that, like, it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to learn from yourself and from others, right? And then even with that, sometimes life is the best teacher. And so another question in the chat is talking about, like, I guess essentially, what's a big takeaway that's something that you've learned about yourself or your leadership, but within a stressful moment, kind of like where we are right now.
Yeah.
A big takeaway or a life lesson. That's a loaded question.
I think, I told you a little bit about the relationship that I was in earlier, the one that the one that ended, or the one where I wrote the book about authenticity and vulnerability while it wasn't being that. That relationship was a marriage, and it ended in divorce. And that's not a club that I'm proud to be a part of or that I wanted to be a part of. But what I also recognized is that that's one of the most critical times of my life, because during that moment, there wasn't anything catastrophically wrong. There was no abuse. There was nothing crazy was going on. There were no kids involved. There were no anything. And I was just unhappy. And I just had this pit in my stomach of like, I don't know if this is it, bro. I don't think this is it. Right. Which also is weird because then you're like, who the hell are you? You got 2 golden retrievers. You got a beautiful old house. You got a brilliant wife. Like, this isn't it for you, bro. Get over yourself. Right. And, but it was just this pit of like, this isn't it. And so unfortunately, I wasn't vulnerable or authentic with her. And so instead, right, there's good selfish and bad selfish in this world. And the divorce taught me about the difference between the two, because I don't think I really ever thought about good selfish. And the divorce taught me about good selfishness, which is I deserve happiness. I deserve a life that I am proud of. I deserve to be heard. I deserve grace. I deserve like all of these kinds of things that I didn't think I deserved because I was too busy shoulding on myself. Right? Well, you should do this, and you should do that, and you should do, and so I kind of like shoulded all the way down to the bottom of this pit, and I was like, oh, this isn't it. And so I would say that's one of the biggest takeaways is that there are moments where we need to stand up for ourselves to ourselves. I'm like, this ain't it. This is not it. Just because you went to school for 6 years in one topic does not mean you're going to let the world down if you all of a sudden pivot and go another direction. Just because you took a leadership position on and a semester in, you realize this is too much for me, doesn't mean that you're going to let people down if you leave. Sometimes it's better for you to get out sometimes, because then the organization can fly. Sometimes you're the weight that's holding the organization back, right? But that's tough to admit. That's really hard. And I had to hurt somebody to learn that lesson. And that sucks because she didn't deserve to be hurt. And that's the way it happened. And it is what it is. Fortunately, she's now happily married, has a kid, and like we good. Or I assume she's good. We don't talk, but it seems good. And I'm happily married again, and we're about to have a kid. And so life keeps moving. But yeah, it sucks that that's the way that had to happen. But that's one thing I learned.
It's actually like a perfect segue though into like the next question, this idea about how, like you said, like that pit, right? We all have this set of core values that really kind of in a way directs us both in our good decisions and our bad decisions. But like you said, it's all a risk, it's all a chance, right? And so can you kind of talk to us about like maybe the biggest risk that you've taken thus far in your life or in your career? And I guess just how did it go? Was it a good, bad? Are you still processing and figuring out what it is exactly? But.
Yeah. Since I just talked about the end of that relationship, that was certainly a gigantic risk, right? That idea of like, all right, I'm gonna go start over, right? Like that was hard when I had comfort, right? That was the thing, is that I left comfort. I was like, this is because my life would have been fine, it would have been good, but I thought I deserved great. And so that's why I did. But I just talked a lot about that. But I think that was definitely a risk for sure. I think the other risk that's the most blatant is leaving a full-time job and becoming a full-time speaker. Right. And I kind of took a couple of years to do it, where speaking was a side hustle for me for a couple of years. Because, I wasn't ready to leave completely that security. And also I was still trying to ramp up the business and whatnot and build the name. And, but there came a time where I was like, well, this is it. I ran out of vacation days in my full-time job. I was working at New Jersey City University at the time, up in Jersey City. And I ran out of vacation days in August. And I was like, I got 4 more months and I got a number of other speeches that I need vacation days for. Like, what do I do? Right. And it just let me know that like, this is the time. You're either going to make the choice now to see if you can make it as a full-time entrepreneur and go, or you're going to make the decision right now that this is always going to be a side hustle and a hobby for you. So what you going to do? And I think that was one of the biggest risks I took as well. It was pre-kids. It was pre-even marriage. We were dating at that point, and I was about to propose to her and that kind of stuff. But that was a big risk, because I also needed to, that first year, I needed to rely on her a little bit more. And that was a self-esteem blow for sure. She's the one like, I'll pay for dinner. I'm like, oh. It's just like, because you want to feel like you can contribute, right? I'm not like, I'm the man, I got to pay for everything, but I am like I'm the man, I should at least pay for half, right? And so like that's kind of where I'm at. But yeah, so that idea of like, I'm gonna lean on somebody for a minute, but I believe that, that it'll be worth it. I'm not going to lean for long. So
I think it's even a great point in talking to about. I think a lot of folks are at a crossroad right now. That passion versus purpose, right? That doing what, like you mentioned, talking about comfort. I know so many students who are in a major that they absolutely hate, but because they're afraid of starting over or shifting or having to meet new friends and get used to a new curriculum, and just the idea of new and different scares folks. How did you? So mind you, I'm sure you've done it now several times. How do you really kind of build up that courage and that inner, I call it like your inner dog, like that? How do you kind of build that up to really make that step? What does that look like for people, especially today when you don't know what tomorrow might look like?
yeah. And I just want to appreciate the callback to DMX also. Thank you for that. So
Yeah, I'm a fan.
come on now. I got blood on my hands and there's no remorse. All right. Anyway, we're not going there. So, but it is dark and hell is hot. So, the thing is, these old school hip hop references.
You can tell that we're older than everybody here, right?
Yeah, this is a you me moment right now, and I'm fine with that. So, not every joke's for everybody, but yeah, what are some of those? What are some of those moments, and how do you get over them? I think first off, the jump is never as far as we think it is. We build it up to be way bigger. And I'm not saying that there's no risk, right? I'm not saying like just go for it. No, like make a calculated decision. But at the end of the day, you need to decide, did I learn to swim before or after I got in the pool? And you learned to swim after you got in the pool if you learned how to swim. You know what I'm saying? Like that happened after you got in the pool, not before. Like as many swimming lessons as you wanted to take on dry ass land, nothing prepares you for getting in the actual water, right? And so at some point in time, you have to figure out, can I go, right? At some point in time, mama bird shoves baby bird out the nest, right? Taking up too much space. And so at some point in time, you have to make that decision. And I think one of the things that makes the decision so much bigger than it looks, makes the jump look so much higher, is because we think this next move has to be our last move. And that's not the case, right? When you're leaving college, you're applying for your first job, not your last job, right? And so if we start to think of it that way, of like, well, this is just my first job, now it feels a lot more manageable, right? It's like, all right, well, let me get my first job, right? And maybe I will fall in love with it. Maybe it wind up turning into my last job, but maybe, who knows? What I do know is that it's my first job, and let me try it out. You don't know if you like certain foods before they come into your mouth. You know what I'm saying? Like you got to taste, you got to be at the buffet of life and taking some nibbles out here. And so, so with that being said, I think that's one of the biggest things also. I think also having a few people in your corner is also important, right? Who are those few people that believe in you and not blindly believe in you? Right? Those kind of like challenger cheerleader folks. My buddy Justin talks about that too, where it's like we need to have challengers and cheerleaders. If they can be in the same person, that's great. But oftentimes they're separate individuals. But it's willing to have some of those individuals that you don't mind if they ask you more questions, and you actually hear them when they say, "I believe in you." Right? Because not a lot of people can walk up to me like, "I believe in you." I'm like, "I don't know who you are. This is awkward." Right? And there's also some people that come up to me and they challenge me and they just piss me off. Right? If you challenge me and I don't like you, don't believe me, just watch. Right? Whereas some other individuals, if I respect their opinion and I think they care deeply about me and know me, if they challenge me, then I think. And so those are the kind of challengers I'm talking about. So that's what I would say.
Awesome. And I think you brought up a really great point too, and just in this idea of perfection. Like, we do turn out of our molehills into mountains, but even today it's easy to do when you have media and news and your timeline and everything that makes you feel like, even myself, I'm like, am I not doing enough? Like I only got 3 hours of sleep, but should I have gotten two? Or did I sleep an hour too long?
Yeah.
How do you really bring down, I wasn't gonna say bring down, but how do you lower that expectation? Or how do you make it more realistic for yourself, because for some folks that sounds like a quote and it's hard to actually live out in real life.
Hmm. Yeah, for sure. I mean, we hold ourselves to standards that we would never ask anybody else to hold themselves to. And that's not kind, right? That's not kind to you. And so some of it comes down to, yes, we are dream followers. Yes, we should be dream chasers, but we must also be individuals that grant ourselves patience and grace, right? And so oftentimes the dream isn't unrealistic, but the timeline is, right? And so we got to look at what aspects of these things we are judging ourselves on. I think that's what a lot of it comes down to is the perfectionism. Perfectionism basically says the journey doesn't matter. Perfectionism is only that the end product matters. And literally every cliche quote that's ever been said in history tells us otherwise, right? Like that it is the journey, not the end result. I'm not saying we shouldn't chase the end result, but I'm saying that at some point in time, we've got to be reflective in the journey as well and recognize that there's beauty in the journey. There's beauty in the slip ups and the mess ups, right? At the same time, I'm someone, I don't know if this will divide the room a little bit, but I'm not someone who believes everything happens for a reason. I am someone who believes everything happens for a reason if you do something about what happened. You know what I'm saying? So we go through a bunch of experiences. Whether those experiences happen for some big reason, I have no idea. Are you going to take the time to reflect, to adjust, to adapt, to move? Cool. Then it happened for a reason. But if you're just waiting for shit to happen to you for a reason, that's not going to work, right? Stagnation and silence are never the answers to any problems. So I think that's what I would say.
Wow, let's load it. You could low key just drop the mic right there and just walk the hell out. You really could.
Okay.
Right there. But you're right. But you know what? It is Sunday, right? And so I want to make sure we end on a positive note. But I guess in a way, you've said so much, and you've even for me, you've as always, you've dropped so many nuggets. But just if you could give folks just one nugget, like if you wanted people to remember just one thing about you, about this conversation, about just how to navigate this time, what would it be?
Mm-hmm. One of my favorite quotes of all time is from a Canadian rapper, not named Drake. Believe it or not, there's another Canadian rapper.
Prove it. Prove it.
Prove it. There's this dude named Shad, S-H-A-D, and he's a dope lyricist. And Shad simply says this on one of his tracks. He says, well, I can't be everything to everyone, so let me be anything to anyone. He said, well, I can't be everything to everyone, so let me be anything to anyone. If we start to recognize that we are good enough, that maybe right now where we are in our lives is right where we need to be. We're not done growing. We're not done moving. But maybe right now is good, right? Like it is good. We can turn around and be like, oh, shoot, look how high up the mountain I climbed, right? Like at these moments, if we recognize that we've done some growing and some learning and we've done some cool things, then we can share our stories to other individuals and we can become something to someone. But if we don't do that, then we're constantly thinking that we've never even got started. We're all climbing a mountain and we're comparing ourselves. We're looking around and being like, oh, shoot, look where they are on their mountain and they are on their mountain. And we're comparing ourselves, but we have no idea where they got dropped off on their mountain because of things like generational wealth, right? Like so, and things like that. And so, at some point in time in all of our journeys, and this is why milestones are cool, graduations, weddings, or getting big first jobs or celebrating, a launch of something, that moment where we stop and be like, oh, shoot, look at that. I climbed pretty high. Maybe I have been doing something with my life. Maybe I haven't been wasting it. That's awesome. Now I know that when I keep moving, that maybe I can trust that I am making progress. That's what I would say.
Absolutely. And more importantly, like you said, while you're watching someone on their mountain, somebody's watching you on yours.
Hmm.
And whether you try and fail, whether you fall and get back up, it's a part of your story and it's inspiring someone else. And that's leadership at the end of the day.
Yes.
Oh,
Beautifully put.
you know what? You know what? This was church on a Sunday night. Okay. Who says 6 p.m. is too late, right?
Amen.
Absolutely. First and foremost, on behalf of Temple University, the Office of Leadership Development, the LIT team, the planning committee for this conference, James, from the bottom of our heart, we thank you so much. You know what? Okay, at 5, I was like, you know what? Should we have invited him? Should he have been our keynote? But you know what? By 5:30, you shut me right on up.
Well, so glad I did that. I was nervous.
5:30,
Right?
I'm like, that's why, you know? But absolutely, thank you so very much. For folks to know, you are in Socio. All of your information is in Socio, the
Oh,
app.
great.
I know you put some things in the chat, but for folks who want to connect with you, as I mentioned before, James and I are connected on LinkedIn, and he tends to drop a lot of jewels on there. I have been telling students to hop on LinkedIn. That's where all the grown folks are.
Absolutely. Yeah, get on there.
Come and join the fun with us. They're telling you thank you very much in the chat. Folks, you can also chat with James as well and network with him in the chat, in the Socio app as well. And so if he did say something that was really impactful for you today and you want to chat with him, please do so. Let your friends know to watch the recorded session. It will be live, or I'm sorry, it'll be able to be viewed as early as tomorrow morning. So make sure you check that out and tell your friends and your peers to check that out as well. But thank you so much, James. We appreciate you. And next time we gotta have you in Philly, okay? Get you
I'm
a
coming
coffee at
through.
Wawa.
I love Philly. I love Philly. So much good food over there. No, thank you so much. And thanks for letting me be a part of this incredible event.
Absolutely, absolutely. Awesome. At this time, this concludes our keynote session as well as our kickoff session. Again, thank you, James. Thank you for all of you who chose to be a part of today. But more importantly, looking forward to see you engaging with us and connecting in more sessions and more great fun things we have for you throughout the rest of the week. And continue to show love. See y'all later.
Much love, y'all. Take care.